Harry wasn't sure whether he liked Slughorn or not. He supposed he had been pleasant in his way, but he had also seemed vain and, whatever he said to the contrary, much too surprised that Muggleborn should make a good witch. Horace, said Dumbledore, relieving Harry of the responsibility to say any of this, likes his comfort. He also likes his company of the famous, the successful, and the powerful. He enjoys the feeling that he influences these people. He has never wanted to occupy the throne himself. He prefers the back seat. More room to spread out, you see. He used to handpick favorites at Hogwarts, sometimes for their ambition or their brains, sometimes for their charm or their talent. And he had an uncanny knack for choosing those who would go on to become outstanding in their various fields. Horace formed a kind of club of his favorites, with himself at the center, making introductions, forging useful contacts between members, and always reaping some kind of benefit in return. Whether a free box of his favorite crystallized pineapple, or the chance to recommend the next junior member of the Goblin Liaison Office. Harry had a sudden and vivid mental image of a great swollen spider, spinning a web around it, twitching a thread here and there, to bring its large and juicy flies a little closer. I tell you all this, Dumbledore continued, not to turn you against Horace, or, as we must now call him, Professor Slughorn, but to put you on guard. He would undoubtedly try to collect you, Harry. You would be the jewel of his collection, the boy who lived, or as they call you these days, the chosen one. At these words, a chill that had nothing to do with the surrounding mist stole over Harry. He was reminded of words he had heard a few weeks ago, words that had a horrible and particular meaning to him. Neither can live while the other survives. Dumbledore had stopped walking, level with the church they had passed earlier. This will do, Harry, if you will grasp my arm. Braced this time, Harry was ready for the apparition, but still found it unpleasant. When the pressure disappeared, and he found himself able to breathe again, he was standing in his country lane beside Dumbledore and looking ahead at the crooked silhouette of his second favorite building in the world, the Burrow. In spite of the feeling of dread that had just swept through him, his spirits could not help but be lifted at the sight of it. Ron was in there, and so was Mrs. Weasley, who could cook better than anyone he knew. "If you don't mind, Harry," said Dumbledore, as they passed through the gate, "I'd like a few words with you before we part. In private, perhaps in here." Dumbledore pointed towards the run-down stone outhouse where the Weasleys kept their broomsticks. A little puzzled, Harry followed Dumbledore through the creaking door into a space little smaller than an average cupboard. Dumbledore illuminated the tip of his wand so that it glowed like a torch, and smiled down at Harry. "I hope you will forgive me for mentioning it, Harry, but I am pleased and a little proud at how well you seem to be coping after everything that happened at the Ministry. Permit me to say that I think Sirius would have been proud of you." Harry swallowed. His voice seemed to have deserted him. He did not think he could stand to discuss Sirius. It had been painful enough to hear Uncle Vernon say, "His godfather's dead?" And even worse to hear Sirius' name thrown out casually by Slughorn. "It was cruel," said Dumbledore softly, "that you and Sirius had such a short time together. A brutal ending to what would have been a long and happy relationship." Harry nodded, his eyes fixed resolutely on the spider now climbing Dumbledore's head. He could tell that Dumbledore understood, that he might even suspect that until his letter arrived, Harry had spent nearly all of the time of the Dursleys lying on his bed, refusing meals and staring at the misted windows, full of the chill emptiness that he had come to associate with Dementors. "It's just hard," Harry said finally in a low voice, "to realize he won't write me again." His eyes burned suddenly and he blinked. He felt stupid for admitting it, but the fact that he had someone outside Hogwarts who cared for what happened to him, almost like a parent, had been one of the best things about discovering his godfather, and now the post owls would never return to bring him comfort again. "Sirius represented much to you that you had never known before," said Dumbledore gently. Naturally, the loss is devastating." "But while I was at the Dursleys," interrupted Harry, his voice growing stronger, "I realized I can't shut myself away or crack up. Sirius wouldn't have wanted that, would he? And anyways, life's too short. Look at Madame Bones. Look at Emmeline Vance. It could be me next, couldn't it? But if it is, he said fiercely, now looking straight into Dumbledore's blue eyes gleaming in the wandlight, I'll make sure I take down as many Death Eaters with me as I can, and Voldemort too if I can manage it. Spoken both like your mother and father's son, and Sirius is true godsend, said Dumbledore, with an approving pat on Harry's back. I'll take my hat off to you, or I would, if I were not afraid of showering you with spiders. And now, Harry, on a closely related subject. I gather that you have been taking the Daily Prophet over the past 2 weeks. Yes, said Harry. His heart beat a little faster. Then you will have seen that there have not been so much leaks as floods concerning your adventure at the Hall of Prophecy. Yes, said Harry, and now everyone knows that I'm the one. No, they do not, interrupted Dumbledore. There are only 2 people in the world who know the full contents of the prophecy made about you and Lord Voldemort, and they are both standing in the smelly, spidery broom shed. It is true, however, that many have guessed correctly that Voldemort sent his Death Eaters to steal the prophecy, and that the prophecy concerned you. Now, I think I am correct in saying that you have not told anybody that you know what the prophecy said. No, said Harry. A wise decision on the whole, said Dumbledore, although I think you ought to relax it in favor of your friends, Mr. Ronald Weasley and Miss Hermione Granger. Yes, he continued, when Harry looked startled, I think they ought to know. You do them a disservice by not confiding something as this important to them. I didn't want to worry or frighten them, said Dumbledore, surveying Harry over the top of his half-moon spectacles, or perhaps to confess that you yourself are worried or frightened. You need your friends, Harry. As you so rightly said, Sirius would not have wanted you to shut yourself away. Harry said nothing, but Dumbledore did not seem to require an answer. He continued, on a different, though related subject, It is my wish that you take private lessons with me this year. Private? With you? Said Harry, surprised, out of the preoccupied silence. Yes, I think it is time that I took a greater hand in your education. What will you be teaching me, sir? Oh, a little of this, a little of that, said Dumbledore airily. Harry waited hopefully, but Dumbledore did not elaborate, so he asked something else that had been bothering him slightly. If I'm having lessons with you, I won't have to do occlumency lessons with Snape, will I? Professor Snape, Harry. And no, you will not. Good, said Harry in relief, because they were He stopped carefully not to say what he really thought. I think the word fiasco would be a good one here, said Dumbledore, nodding. Harry laughed. Well, that means I won't see much of Professor Snape from now on, he said, because he won't let me carry on potions unless I get outstanding in my owls, which I know I won't. Don't count your owls before they are delivered, said Dumbledore gravely, which, now that I think of it, ought to come some time later today. Now, 2 more things, Harry, before we part. Firstly, I wish you to keep your invisibility cloak with you at all times from this moment onward, even within Hogwarts itself, just in case, you understand me? Harry nodded. And lastly, while you stay here, the Burrow has been given the highest security the Ministry of Magic can provide. These measures have caused a certain amount of inconvenience to Arthur and Molly. All their posts, for instance, is being searched at the Ministry before being sent on. They do not mind in the slightest, for their only concern is for your safety. However, it would be poor repayment if you risk your neck while staying with them. I understand, said Harry quietly. Very well, then, said Dumbledore, pushing open the broom shed door and stepped out into the yard. I see the light in the kitchen. Let us not deprive Molly any longer of the chance to deplore how thin you are.